Hello and welcome to another episode of the Danielle K Show. You guys, I am here in Miami. I'm so excited. Last year I transitioned my podcast from the Big Money Stylist to the Danielle K Show, and I did this because I wanted to have the opportunity to really connect and interview with some powerful people. So I'm so excited. I have an amazing guest here in my home today, Eric Spofford.
Thanks for having me.
Hey you guys, it's Danielle K. White. Welcome to the Danielle K. White Show. On this podcast, what you can expect is anything from fashion, fitness, hair, and yes, even family. I'm the creator of Natural Vita Real Hair Extensions and Isla Hand-Tied Hair. But what I'm really passionate about is sharing other people's stories, how they went from the pit to the peak, how entrepreneurs build the success that you see online today. So definitely tune into this podcast for a good story and a little bit of fashion and a little bit of hair and beauty mixed in. And welcome. Thanks for being here. I met you, I don't know if you remember, but I met you probably 3 years ago at a Grant Cardone's event. It was like a smaller event, and me and Garrett came out.
Yeah, and that was after I met Garrett, which was at Sean Whalen's event. And then I saw you and met you there with him. It was like a small influencer event or something like that.
Yeah.
I do remember
like
that.
2.5 years ago. But it's crazy how like now we live here and able to reconnect and all the good things. How did
Welcome
you met?
to Miami.
Yeah, I know. It's a different beast, but
Sure
I like
is.
it. It feels like home. I felt like Orange County was fun, and I felt like Garrett and I had kind of outgrown it, and so here it's exciting, and we've already been able to connect to a ton of really cool people, so it's been amazing.
It's been good to me.
How long have you lived here?
Pushing 4 years now.
Okay, so you're fairly new too.
But it felt like home quickly as well.
Okay.
And I couldn't see living anywhere else now.
Really?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm scared for the summers a little bit, but
Plan your travel.
okay.
Yeah, it's a good time to go to Europe, go up north. Yeah.
Yeah, because it gets a little
And
sweaty.
it's not that bad, but it certainly gets hot.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Well, I was really inspired by your story. I heard about it a couple years ago, and then just like talking to Garrett last night, and you've gone through a lot. You've built a lot. You've gone through a lot.
Yeah.
You can see a wisdom in your eyes. And part of the reason I wanted to have you on the show was just to hear your story, and hopefully it impacts other people and they share it and they find it. Like, I think a lot of times people don't want to share their story because they're nervous, but really when you share, it gives people permission. It makes them feel like, oh my gosh, like he went through so much and yet accomplished so much. Why am I standing on the sidelines? What's my excuse? Why can't I do it?
I think that's the key, is what's my excuse? A lot of the reason why I do share my story is it removes all the bullshit lies that people tell themselves. Like, I went through a lot, and out of going through a lot, I've been able to build and accomplish a lot.
Right.
And so I've been really extreme in both sides of life, the bad and the successful and the positive. Right. And, I think that, God's grace and opportunity falls equally on all people's shoulders. And if one person can do it, so can you.
Right.
And so that's why I kind of just shared it openly for a long time now.
Right.
And, it helps to make it make sense too.
How long ago? Now, I want to give people a little bit of context. So your big success was building rehab centers, right?
Right.
But what inspired you to build those is because you were an addict yourself and had like some crazy dark years. How long ago was that?
This past December, I celebrated 18 years of sobriety.
Oh, wow.
And so I got sober December 7th of 2006.
Okay.
And I really kind of delved into hardcore addiction in about probably 99, 2000. And so there were like 6-7 years that every day was insanity. Every day I was a walking felony. By the time I was 15 years old, I truly, and I don't say this to be dramatic, I literally at 15 years old never expected to live past 21.
Oh, wow.
And had fully accepted that, was cool with it, and thought that in the remote chance that I did live past 21, it would probably be because I went to prison, and that is, what kept me alive. And honestly, I was right. Most of my friends, close to all of the people from that time in my life, are dead or in prison.
Oh, wow.
And I'm the only one that made it out. Out there, it went from selling drugs to doing drugs to party drugs, ecstasy, coke, ketamine, rave scene, to Oxycontin, when people, I was doing Oxycontin when Oxycontin was brand new on the scene, right? Where people didn't really understand
Right.
what it was. And certainly, the nation's opioid epidemic was not unknown. It didn't even exist yet. We were kind of the first ones to do it. And then that Oxycontin habit turned into heroin. And heroin turned into 6 years of just pain and misery.
You started so young.
Yeah, I was addicted to Oxycontin at 14, and I was 15 years old when I started IV heroin use. And I got sober and have been sober since not long before my 22nd birthday.
How'd you get out of it?
I had more than 100 tried and failed attempts at trying to get sober and change my life. And I mean, I went to rehabs, I went to recovery meetings, I went to jail. I woke up and swore that I'd never do it again, over and over and over again. And, the interesting thing about that, and the interesting thing about addiction is every one of those times, if you had hooked me up to like a lie detector test, and I would have looked you in your face and said, I'm never going to do that again. And I would have passed. And eventually I just ran out of gas. And, I've answered this question thousands of times over the last 18 years, and I don't know what made that one time different, except for I just got my ass whooped so much that I was so tired. I had gotten out of jail, God willing, for the last time. I'd been locked up for a little bit in Cumberland County, which is in Maine, Portland, Maine. And hit the streets. I had robbed a drug dealer for like a big old bag of Oxycontin and other drugs prior to going to jail. That drug dealer in turn had kidnapped my dog and stolen all my belongings. And so I had this little Boston Terrier named Muggsy that was probably the only thing left on this world that I loved. And he was kidnapped by these two drug dealers. And I went out, crazy story, went out looking for both of them. Thank God I didn't find them. I would have killed them both. That was the plan. Walking back from doing home invasions on both of their apartments, looking for them, trying to get my dog back. I had a .380 handgun in my pocket and a large kitchen knife on me. And a kid called out my name in the projects in this like really ghetto neighborhood. And I went and met with them. I was like, what's up? You want to buy drugs? I was just on a hot one. And so I robbed him with the kitchen knife behind a building on December 6th of 2006. And, I rushed him and I held him with the knife and I ran his pockets. I took $82. I thought he had more money than that. But that's how pathetic my life had gotten. That I ran an armed robbery for $82.
Wow.
And I took the $80. I went and bought 4 $20 bags of heroin, went up in the 3rd floor of this triple-decker apartment building in that same neighborhood, into this like drug trap house that we sold drugs out of, and people would stay there. Got high, used the heroin, and right at that time, the whole apartment filled with police blue lights, and they were like searching the neighborhood looking for me. And so I didn't know what to do. So I got in the closet and I hid there. And the apartment was so well known for like drug activity that I was like, they know I'm up here. You know what I mean? Like they know who it was, and they're going to come get me and I'm going to go to prison. And so I sat there with my heart pounding out of my chest, hiding in this closet, waiting for the cops to kick the door in and come and get me. And they never did.
Wow.
And I stayed in that closet all night long. And as kind of things got quiet, and it was probably the middle of the night, and I started to realize that like, I was probably going to survive the situation. That's when I said this one prayer that changed my life. I got on I'd never prayed before, never went to church, never been in a church, never did any of that. And I got on my knees in that closet. And I think the one thing about this time was that I was just out of other options. Like I had tried everything to change my life. I tried moving. I tried changing the city I was in. I tried, nothing could keep me sober. 5 overdoses coming off of life support. I got high the same day, pulling breathing tubes out of me, and I'm out the door to go cop drugs. on probation. I'm in and out of jail. Freedom isn't
Right.
gonna, you know what I mean? Like I was willing to risk absolutely
Right.
anything and everything. I ruined every relationship that I had, destroyed my health, didn't care if I died, didn't care if I went to prison. I was like, what else is there that's going to stop me, get between me and it again? And so the last thing that was left was to turn to God. And I just said this prayer. I said, God, I can't imagine living my life any longer like I am any longer. And I'd rather die than do that. But I don't know how to do anything else. And I need help.
It sounds like by the cops not finding you is like God giving you a second chance.
One thing I learned a lot about God in the last 18 years, and still learn a lot every day. And one thing I know about, the God that I know is he's got a sense of humor, and he also uses what he has available. And, I look back at that day as he used my wicked nature, the entire police department in the city of Portland, Maine, to create an opportunity to separate me from heroin, cocaine and all other mind-altering substances, and manufacture a moment where I had an option to surrender. And in that moment I did. And I said that prayer, and it wasn't long after that I had this intuitive thought to call my mom. And me and my mom didn't have the best relationship growing up. She wasn't around for a lot of my childhood, so it was really kind of a weird, like I hadn't talked to her in a long time.
Yeah.
It's not like it was like my mommy, you know what I mean? Like it was a strange relationship. Called my mom. My mom pulled up the next morning in her Subaru. She drove a couple hours to where I was at to come get me. I think it was like 6:30, 7 in the morning. I threw on a disguise. I put on a button shirt that I stole from this homeless guy that was staying in the trap house, and took his glasses like I was going to work, and came out of the house because the police were still looking for me. Jumped in the backseat of her Subaru, and that was it. That was the beginning.
Would your mom have normally answered your call?
No, nobody at that time would have answered my call. I was a nightmare. Yeah, I didn't have anyone. I had burned every single bridge that I had in my life, most of them twice. You know, like burn the bridge, beg for forgiveness, and then burn it again.
And at that time, your mom answered.
And she answered, yeah, and it was the middle of the night. And I just told her, I said, listen, I need you to come get me.
Wow, that's crazy. I've had like so many moments in my life where it's like you have these pivot moments where you'll never forget. And it's they truly do. They like save your life, and I look at it as like you're meant for more. Like you said, God has a different way of like showing everybody that.
That's right.
So you have this moment, and that's like you went like, how did you get sober? Because that's like not a tricky. That's a hard. You don't just wake up and say I'm going to go sober. Like your body's going to go through withdrawals and all the things. Like how did you do it from there?
I was no stranger to going through withdrawals. I'd done it so many times. Because I had a screaming heroin habit for like almost 7 years, and so I was constantly kicking and trying to get off. But I doubled down, made a decision that day. That next morning, got to my mom's house in New Hampshire, and made a decision that day. I said, you know what, I'm done. I said I'm never going to use again, and went through the withdrawals, staying on her couch, was miserable. It was absolutely horrendous process. And started walking while I was still sick as a dog to 12-step meetings. And walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, a couple days sober, shaking, 135 pounds, track marks up and down both arms. And a group of men that, if God's got angels, those were a couple of them. Wrapped their arms around me and loved on me when I didn't know how to love myself and certainly didn't deserve it. And they were hard on me though. They weren't like, so they kind of took me under their care. I rolled with them every day. They told me what to do. I did it. And one day led to 2 days, led to a week, led to a month, led to 2 months, led to 6 months, led to a year. It just started to stack up.
When you finally were kind of recovered, and what did you do from there? Because I know you started your recovery centers, but I wanted to find out, I'm sure going through these recovery centers, it's like it works for some people and it doesn't work for some people. And so you go on to create your own recovery centers. What inspired you to do that, and how did you do it different than what you had gone through?
One of the things that those men taught me was that part of recovery was helping other people. And they say that if you want to keep it, you have to give it away. And so I was volunteering, helping other addicts and alcoholics at facilities, and also through sponsoring them through the 12 steps. And what I saw was that these guys would get sober at these facilities and they didn't have any place to go long term.
Okay.
And so the original business was a sober house. I got a building in October of 2008 and started my home state, New Hampshire's very first sober living house. And I lived with the guys for the first 2 years. And that was kind of the seed of the business.
Okay.
And then I got inspired to grow that. And so one sober house became 2 sober houses, became 3 sober houses, became an outpatient clinic, which then became an inpatient treatment center, then another inpatient treatment center, then a mental health facility. And it went from one building where I lived there and I was a team of one. I did everything, to growing that business to, it was a collective of 440 treatment beds, 325 employees. And on a run rate, it was doing about $55 million in top line revenue a year.
Oh, wow. So you had kind of seen what was working and what was not working based off your experience. And you're like, we need a house. Like, these guys they need more support. It can't just be like a 12-step program, a weekly meeting. It's like you actually have to live with them. Yeah. So it was a house that how many people were in your first house?
11.
11 people.
Me and 11 guys.
And you lived with them for, a couple months and helped them.
2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
I lived there for 2 years. Yeah. I was 23 when I moved in, and I was 25 when I finally got my own place to live.
How did you acquire this first house, and what made you decide to open it up like that?
My dad helped me put together the first real estate deal.
Okay.
So there was some assistance there. I was a 23-year-old kid when I started the business. And so with I think a 520 credit score.
Yeah.
So I needed a little bit of help. My dad helped put the real estate deal together. We worked hard. My dad owned a tree removal, logging and excavation company.
Okay.
And so I worked with him, got a little bit of money together with him, and used that as a deposit, with him co-signing on the mortgage. And that's how we got the real estate.
Did you pitch him that idea where you're like, I'm going to create this for a recovery home? Okay. So that's how you did it. Like, it's crazy because you found a way to do it different that helped people, and you scaled it so big.
Yeah.
And then you eventually you sold it, right?
I did.
Yeah. How long ago did you sell it?
It just passed 3 years ago. I sold it on December 21st, 2021.
Okay.
And then I've started another business since.
Which
is kind of my active day-to-day now.
Yeah. Why, when it's successful like that, why sell?
There's a couple different things. I think that life has life cycles and periods of time and missions that God gives you, the universe, whatever you believe in. Mm-hmm. And my time there was just done.
Oh, okay.
And it just felt like I had done what I came to do.
Right.
And I felt drawn to, do something new in life. I mean, I did it I was 23 when I started, and I was 36 when I sold it. I grew up there.
Right.
Largely,
Right.
And then from a financial standpoint, I had my entire net worth roped up into this one business. Mm-hmm. The market was good. I was getting insane offers on value because people wanted to buy it.
Right.
And the stars just kind of aligned. And I was like, you know what?
It felt right.
It felt right. And I was like, I want to do something different. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that is. At that time, I did not know what that was. But I was like, You're
like, well, I'll sell it and see what happens.
Exactly.
So what's crazy is you go from this experience of being highly addicted to creating this super successful business.
Yeah.
And most people are not entrepreneurs at heart. And so a lot of people will ask, well, how did you do it? And I'm sure along the way, you're like, I don't know. I just knew what was not working and what needed to be fixed. How did you scale it? How did you have 350 employees at some point?
One brick at a time, really. I just kept on building, and I just kept on. I think this doesn't get talked about enough. One of the key skill sets of most successful entrepreneurs that I see is this one thing, and it's the ability to figure it out. Whereas other people might need, you might give them something that's a bunch of parts and, they might need the instruction manual to figure it out.
Right.
The real thoroughbred entrepreneur is like, they're going to persist and they're going to find a way.
There's no instruction manual.
There's no instruction manual. Like you're going to figure it out. And so
Right.
I remember my first employee, my second employee, feel bad for both of them, and figuring it out. And then one thing led to the next, and I saw a need, and then I could hire this guy to do that, and then I could hire this person of that role to do this job, and if I hired this person, I could add this service, and it was really just like one little piece at a time,
Right.
And it took 13 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't an overnight process. This time, a lot faster because I've already been through
through it.
exactly.
Yeah. I think that's important to share. I think a lot of people don't. They see this success and they're like, "Well, give me a blueprint," and you're like, "There really isn't." It's like you have to be able to problem solve. You have to be able to like, "Well, that didn't work. Well, this is going to work." And
Exactly with the blueprint comment, but also I think they don't calibrate on time. Right? Like I started that in 2008.
Okay.
It's 2025.
Right.
And so a lot of the guys that I coach and mentor and spend time with on the entrepreneurship stuff want it to happen fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got my ass kicked for 10 years.
Yeah.
You have to too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't get to skip the line, pal.
Exactly.
Like you have to put in the time. You have to put in the work. You have to suffer. And that's just the game.
Do you feel like it's like consistency too? Because a lot of times people will think like, "Oh, this business isn't working," and it's 10 years is kind of a short period of time.
I didn't make any money for the first 3 years.
Wow.
I was still cutting down trees for a living during the day and running heavy equipment and taking the money that I was earning to keep the business alive.
Yeah.
Because I cared about it so much.
Right.
And you're right. A lot of people will give up and that like, oh, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
They give up too soon.
Yeah. So now, after you sold that, what was your next thing? What did you feel called to do? Because I feel like it's so crazy when you're an entrepreneur and you're like, oh, I've made it to this level of success, and you're like, I'm going to go have fun, like for a minute, and then you're like, this is depressing. Like
that's exactly.
You're like literally every entrepreneur. You're like, yeah, you have no purpose, and
that's exactly
you can't.
What happened.
There's no such thing as like retiring. Like having the yachts and the things are fun, but you're like, what else? How can I impact? What's the next thing? So what was your next? Did you play around for a little bit and have fun and then decide to do something else, or?
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. I sold the business and I went from every day having a purpose, being a leader, having a team, having, all these people depend on me and count on me, and all the pressure and, the problems that we're constantly figuring out every day and all of that stuff to
It's
silence.
I can hear my own thoughts.
And so I went out and I did all the stuff you do when you sell a company for a lot of money. You go out, you buy a bunch of fast cars, you buy a plane, you buy a boat, you go out, you stay out late at night. I took tennis lessons. I suck at tennis. I'm absolutely terrible.
Like, why not?
And then, I tried golfing for a brief stint. I hate golfing. And then a lot of people will understand this and a lot of people won't. I found myself kind of depressed and kind of, bored. And I was like, and the answer became very clear. It was like, okay, I'm not built to just chill and, retire or any of that. And I made the decision to start another business. So I started Treatment X, which is my addiction treatment business today.
Okay.
Granite Recovery Centers was the one that I sold. And Treatment X has a corporate headquarters here in Southern Florida in Boca Raton.
Okay.
And we are 25 months in operation. We have facilities in Ohio, California, and Pennsylvania. And we're doing some of the things very similar to what I did the first time, and some of what we're doing is very much different in how we're doing it, but we're scaling and growing very quickly.
Okay. And that's just been in the last 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
So how much time in between did you take time off or relax or try to relax? Couple years?
No, 5 months.
Oh, how short-lived.
Yeah, 5 months. I didn't make it long. I really didn't.
Well, it's interesting that you share that and you're like, it's like you get all the cars and the things and it's like it's like fun, but it's like a little bit unfulfilling. And I think
it's like ripping a scratch ticket, kind of like you get this like little exciting thrill, and then
you're like, well,
but now what? It doesn't last.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it, is it's not sustainable.
Right.
Like I stood at the dock while they pulled up my 92-foot yacht that I just purchased and took delivery of the yacht. I stood on the tarmac while they landed my new jet and pulled up. I went to the dealership and, took off out of the parking lot and, all these different cars and stuff. And it's like, those are cool moments. I don't regret any of them, but they don't fulfill me today.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'm on my second jet, my third yacht, and I could give a shit. I don't care at all. Like, they're cool. They're nice to have. I really don't care. And the stuff that keeps me going is that daily grind, that process, the purpose, the mission, helping other people, building something, creating, being a leader, having people depend on me, having responsibility, having high stress, every day out there fighting.
Right.
That stuff is what keeps me going.
Humans are built though. Like, honestly, it's like, but once you get that, you're like, oh, life is, you're going to get the cars and the planes and that, but life's not really about that. And the crazy thing is this game never ends. I always joke around with Garrett. I'm like, you're never going to retire. That's like not even a thing anymore. I'm like, we're not meant to like settle in, in our 60s and buy the house. Like, that's depressing. That's why all these men run into all these problems and cheat and start the cycle again and do drugs and do all the things. It's like, because we're meant to continue to push forward. We're meant to impact. We're meant to grow. And it's like, the stuff of this physical life is cool and it's fun, but you're going to be happier and more fulfilled by pushing. So tell me about your new business. How is it a little bit different than the first one? And what inspired you to go that route again?
It's a business that I know well. It's a labor of love for me. It's an issue that is still very personal and will be for my whole life. And it just felt natural to go back in that direction. One of the things that we're doing differently this time in that business is we grew everything organically the first time. This time I built the corporate infrastructure and the first facility organically, but the last two we actually purchased.
Oh, okay.
And so now we're out in the market buying businesses and doing M&A, mergers and acquisition, in kind of a roll-up strategy.
I was going to say, because I knew you were into real estate. And so is that tie into it, or
it does? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I almost always own the underlying real estate assets for these facilities. And I'm in other verticals of real estate as well. Low income housing, Section 8, multifamily, other commercial.
When did you get into real estate?
When I bought that first building for the sober house. Honestly, I started my business and did my first real estate deal the same day. And then they kind of both built parallel, but the real estate's just kind of boring and not nearly as sexy as the other stuff. So it doesn't really get as much airplay, but I've been an active real estate investor, developer, builder, all of it for a long time.
What are you most passionate about the growth of your company right now?
We're finding underperforming addiction treatment facilities around the country, and we're doing 2 of them right now, and bringing in our very talented executive team and corporate infrastructure and being value add to those facilities and, turning them into highly successful spots for people to go get well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like you said, like you found something that was working at some level, but you like almost came in and made it even better.
Yeah. Totally.
So where do you see it going?
National. I mean, we're on both coasts and Middle America now, and we're targeting acquisitions of facilities in all 48 states right now.
Oh, wow.
And so, we have a plan that for the next, our 24-month plan is an acquisition a quarter. And so if we hit target, we'll buy 1 treatment facility every 3 months for the next 24 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
it's busy.
Amazing. How many, I mean, I don't even know, but I imagine like say just in like Miami area, like how many treatment centers are there?
A lot.
Is there a lot? Okay.
There's hotbeds where there's more than other places, but Southern Florida and from West Palm to Miami, there's a ton.
Wow.
Southern California, Orange County. I actually have a business just outside Orange County in Corona, California, which is technically Riverside.
Oh, okay.
And so that whole area has a lot as well.
Can like, and this might be an interesting question, but like, is it for all ages?
There are adolescent facilities. We don't have any for those, but other than that, it's adults.
It's adults. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
all ages.
That's crazy.
It's interesting if you go to one of my facilities or any addiction treatment facility and you walk through to see who's there. It's not who most people would expect.
Really?
But yeah, a recent admit that we had at one of our facilities was a federal prosecutor.
Oh, wow.
You know, these are business people, you know, all walks of life.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they're guys that have been to prison and, you know, been homeless all the way to, you know, high net worth executives and business owners and everyone in between.
Wow.
Yeah, addiction and alcoholism really doesn't discriminate on socioeconomic status, neighborhood, you know, race, or any of that. It affects everybody.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, like addiction can run in anything. You know what I mean? I mean, my husband's like highly addicted with everything, so I'm just kind of always like, it's your guys' personalities. Like I see it, and it's been interesting as a wife to kind of sit back and navigate, but it's been a good journey. So how it's crazy to think though that like you're rock bottom and then just where you're at now. Would you have ever thought that, like 16-year-old you?
No, God, no. 16-year-old me, like I told you, I really did not believe that I'd be alive past 21 years old.
Right.
I mean, 16-year-old me, I had been an IV drug user already for a year. I had a full-blown heroin habit. People around me were dying and going to prison. 16 years old, was running with older kids, the big dogs. Like I did not live a normal 16-year-old existence by any means. And so the idea of this is so far out of my life today is so far out of fetch of what I ever thought was possible. To the extent that the idea that I would ever just be a normal person with a job, with a little house, with like a white fence, a dog, and like a halfway decent wife,
right,
was like, I never thought that would happen, let alone any of this.
Yeah. It's crazy though too, because you have to really like blow the ceiling, you know. It's like everybody has like, oh, when I get my picket fence and this and that, then I'll be happy. And it's like you didn't expect this out of you, but God had a different plan for you.
That's right.
And it's so crazy because you're like, wow, I'm so glad I had that moment in the closet where I got on my knees and prayed to God, because look at the impact that you're making and how many people you're helping. And so that's, I mean, when I hear your story, I'm like, that's got to be amazing. And it probably pushes you forward too, to like keep impacting and keep doing what you're doing. It's, for me, it's like, it's almost like you get, like a calling that you can't ignore.
That's exactly what
and
it
it's
is.
like once you have that like calling, you wake up every day like you have a stewardship towards other people.
Yeah. I mean, with 100% certainty.
Got Dory.
We have a friend on the podcast, guest speaker.
She sensed you. She was like, oh, he's a good guy.
Yeah. She's cute. She's fine. I think they want to see you over there. With 100% certainty, there's not a single doubt in my mind that God has done remarkable things with me, with the sole purpose of me being able to help other people.
Yeah.
You know? And that's why I continue to do it. So it drew me back into the business. That's why I tell my story openly. It's why I, open kimono. I'm very vulnerable with sharing all of these things when, don't have to be, but it would be a shame and a sin not to.
I was going to say, it's crazy when you like kind of sense this calling. I always tell myself, I'm like, when I don't want to do things, I'm like, I'd be selfish to like stop. Right. And in that same point, like when you stop, that's when, like, for me, I've kind of gotten to this place of like, oh, why am I sad? Why am I? And it's like, because you're meant for more. And it's not even like you get to this point, you're like, life is so big. I didn't realize it could get this big, but that's why I genuinely believe it's an ongoing journey.
You brought up a really good point there, and I fully agree, where I think most people's problems are because they are out of alignment, and that you have your purpose, your God-given mission, the moral compass you were supposed to have, the people you were supposed to help, the version of you that you were meant to become. And if you could only just align you with what that thing is, your life would take off.
Love that.
But you, out of selfishness, self-centeredness, fear, all of these things that draw us off kilter from the path. That the delta, the distance between who you are meant to be and how you're actually showing up is in that gap is where most of your problems actually exist.
Yeah, I agree. It's so crazy too. We're so much closer than what we think. We're like, oh, I can't have this life. I can't be that person. And it's honestly, I feel like we're so much closer.
Yeah, people think that change is a long road, and really it happens instantaneously because it's one decision.
Yeah.
It's absolutely one decision. And on any given day, like December 7th, 2006, I made one decision to never drink and use alcohol or drugs ever again. And it was the beginning of an entirely brand new life, a brand new chapter.
Right.
And so that one decision really is the thing that holds people back. And it's a shame because you'll see that fear keeps them in a prison from making that one decision that could change everything for them.
Right.
Life changes. The thing that I found is that life changes very quickly. It is not this long, drawn out process of life was this way and now it's that way. Life is one way for a long period of time until one decision is made or one thing happens.
Right.
We're always one phone call away from everything being different from ever. One introduction, one handshake away from life being different forever.
Right.
It's like when you think about when you got that call and it was bad news. Life's never the same again.
Right.
That one time.
Right.
The moment you met Garrett. That one moment, you remember that, right? Life is never the same. That one thing changed it forever.
Right.
And so I always thought that really interesting that people do get hung up on making simple issues much more complex than they need to be. Like one of the things I think that drives that too is they have this disconnect from their own mortality. One of the gifts that being in recovery from addiction gave me, and being on the front lines of this crisis, was I became intimately connected with my own mortality through a high amount of exposure of death. It wasn't a pleasant experience.
Right.
I watched hundreds, if not thousands of people die. Still do frequently. And most people live as if they're not running out of time. And it's like they're living like this is going to go on forever. And if they really understood the urgency of life, that like you would make that decision. You'd put that food down. You'd put that drink down. You'd be the person you want to be. You would leave that terrible relationship. You would, whatever it is for you, you would do right now. If you understood, like, dude, you're going to die someday. Yeah. And it's going to happen faster than you think.
And I love that you're actually like touching base on this, because people just think I'm going to follow the checklist and I'll die and I'll just be happy. And it's like, I personally don't believe that. I'm like, this earth, what we're doing here has so much impact than we can even like comprehend. And I believe it like kind of sets the precedence of like, yeah, we die and go on, but like you're going to still be the person you created in this life. Yeah. So you better make it a good, impactful life. Yeah. So it's just, it's crazy though. And I love like hearing your perspective on that. Are you still, do you still lean into that voice and lean into God, like kind of leading and guiding you?
That's everything to me. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was that one prayer changed my life, that I made, more than 18 years ago now. And now every day it's prayer and listening and, guidance and, and just staying in touch with that intuition. And, you could feel it in your heart. And that's what I mean by like, when you have it in your heart that this is the way it needs to be, or this is where you should go, or this is what you need to do, or that calling, and you ignore it. Like that's where this anxiety, this depression, all of these very human troubles that people struggle with come from. Right. When, if you could just overcome that and break through it, I think a lot of people would find a lot of relief from their struggles. Yeah.
I always tell Garrett, I'm like, you just, like even us moving to Miami, he's like, how do you know? I'm like, because I was the one that triggered this move. I'm like, I don't know. I just feel it. Yeah. I'm like, I feel like this is the direction we're supposed to go. This is the one decision like you talked about. And who knows what opportunities and what ripple effect this is going to have. And so I love that you just said it's one decision, because I think that people often overcomplicate it by thinking it's a series of decisions, and it may be, but it starts with one decision.
It starts starts with one decision, but when you make that proposition to people, oftentimes they start to overthink it. And it's like, well, what if this and what if that? And you know, and they get into this and it's all just fear. And that's what I mean about the relationship to their own mortality. And it's like, well, how do you overcome that fear? Dude, you're going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're literally running out of time.
Right.
Like, doesn't even matter as much as you think it does.
And like, it's crazy because like 5 years, 10 years, it sounds like a long time. And then you're like, whoa, that actually went by fairly fast.
That's what I'm saying.
Then you see some people and you're like, you're in the same spot that you were.
Time seems so much longer when you look at it from where you are into the future than it does looking backwards. And the thing about it is that looking backwards is actually the truth at how fast time moves. Like it's 2025. Think about how 2015 feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
2035 feels like 100 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't see into the future.
Exactly. You know, and it everything just moves very, very quickly. And one of the things that bothers me about people that I wish I could, you know, implore upon them is like, move urgently. Like move with a high level of intent and move with a high level of urgency. Like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like you have to move fast.
Yeah.
It's okay to make mistakes, you know, as a result.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, the speed bumps come, right? You make a decision, and then I think a lot of times people, they hit a speed bump, and they're like, that was the wrong decision. You're like, no, that's just like a challenge. That's a speed bump, and you gotta move through that. So tell people that are listening to this show, you know, that they struggle with addiction, or they just are struggling to move forward, to find purpose in their life. You've gone through so much, and you've overcome death, honestly. And so, what advice could you give them to just really get out of that mindset? Because you can make the decision, but it's not like, you did have the moment where you had the prayer and you're like woke up, but it was then like day by day, you know. And what advice could you give to people who are just feeling stuck? Because it's not like an overnight success.
The thing that works for me, and I think about this every day without exception, is I don't know when this is going to be. None of us do. But there's going to come a time where we're out of chances and we're out of runway. We're at the end of life. And you'll be at some level aware that you are at the end of your life and death is imminent. And in that moment, in that period of time, you will have to reconcile your experience here on earth. And I close my eyes and I think about that. And I think, what do I regret? You know what I mean? What means something in that moment?
Right.
And I use that to calibrate what I do in the day to day. It's that moment why I will tell you exactly how I feel and speak fearlessly. It's that moment why I'll take all the risk.
Yeah.
It's that moment why I'll get up and go do the thing. You know, it's that moment why I will make that decision. Because I know if I get to that moment and I don't, the thing that I'm scared of most is right then and there having regret. Yeah. And so when that becomes the North Star and you can really like dial in on that and understand it, this other stuff that holds people back just starts to matter so much less than it did. You know? Yeah. And staying true to yourself and true to, you know, what you're supposed to be doing.
It's almost living like every day intentional. It's like, you know, like make the most of every single day.
Squeeze every last drop out of this thing.
So do you have days where it's like, I know you're a father, so do you have days where you're kind of relaxed and less intense and can kind of just chill at home, or is that hard for you?
That's super hard for me.
I had to ask because like Sundays for Garrett, he's like, what are we doing? I'm like, we're just going to go to the beach. He's like, but for how long? And I'm like an hour, like calm down. Like we'll go to brunch. Like it's fine.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
You know.
But you got to have little moments of that.
Yeah, no, I love both my boys. I prioritize them in my life, but even like when I prioritize being a dad, I do that intensely.
Yeah,
too.
that's scary.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I relate with that 100%.
It's on Saturdays, Garrett's like, we're going to the bouncy house, then we're going here. I'm like, I really just want to like sit and do nothing. He's like, no, we've got to do this. So I appreciate the intensity because it's what makes you successful at what you are. But I
hard to control and hard to turn off though.
Yeah, I
it's
totally
a sword.
get it.
It's a double-edged sword.
Oh, I know. I'm married to one. I'm like, all right, babe, bring it down 10 notches. So do you have coaching programs right now? I was looking like just on through some of your stuff.
Yeah, I do. It's small, it's niche. It is for business owners exclusively. You have to own a company. And we coach how to grow them, how to scale them, how to professionalize their companies, how to build enterprise valuation. I coach them a lot of times, these entrepreneurs that also want to, start to position eventually for an exit, how to sell.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we have business owners from almost every vertical, home services. We have, plumbers, guys that own plumbing shops, electrical shops. We have food and beverage, restaurants. We have gym owners. We have healthcare, both addiction treatment, naturally operators, nursing homes, assisted livings. We have solar business. We just have all sorts of guys and gals that own companies that are in the group. I coach them personally weekly on Zoom on Wednesday mornings at 9 for the highlights of my week. And then about 10 to 12 people that are operators within my companies or people that are in my universe that help me succeed in the day-to-day all have monthly calls as well. And so they have a chance to work with my sales and marketing guys, operational people, legal, human resources. And so it really is just niche that business owners.
Oh, okay. Do you guys have events with them too?
We do a quarterly mastermind, 2 days.
Cool.
And so February 20th and 21st, we'll have a fly-in. Everyone will come here to Miami.
Okay.
And we'll have a great time.
And how do they,
it's a good community.
If somebody's like listening to this and they wanted to know more about that, do they apply?
Yeah, there's on my Instagram, there's on my link tree, there's an application process. You can schedule a call with my team.
Cool.
A lot of it, some people go through that process and the team, onboards them. A lot of the members get here kind of organically and, will message me and, hey, I own this business and have this question. And I'll, just give them the information and say, dude, you should be part of the group.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So if people want more information, just go to your Instagram and then go through there.
Holler at me on Instagram.
Do you have any hair education companies yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I might have to go on. We'll love it. Well, thank you for being on the show today.
Absolutely.
And sharing your story. I know you share it all the time, but I honestly think everybody has a different audience, right? My audience is going to be so different than Garrett's audience or anybody else. And so the more you can get on different platforms and share.
Totally. The thing about that, and I appreciate you having me, and I'm honored to be on the show. And the thing about this message and my story is in all these different audiences, absolutely almost everybody has been affected somehow or some way by addiction.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's interesting. Like I've been on shows and in front of audiences that I'm like, what the hell does this have to do with me?
Yeah.
And every hand in the room goes up almost for
it's interesting.
Understanding the issue.
Hairstylists are kind of notorious for having like substance problems.
I know.
Yeah, they're all crazy. But it's so I definitely think this will hit home with a lot of my listeners. So just thank you for being on the show and being vulnerable and open and showing that like you don't have to accept that in your life. And you can create whatever you want. You just have to make the decision one day at a time.
That's right.
So I love it.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys check out Eric Spofford on Instagram. Is that the best place to find you?
Best place. YouTube too, but Instagram's native.
Okay. Instagram, YouTube, check them out. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank
you guys check out another episode of the Danielle K. White Show every single week, having new guests here in my home in Miami. I'm super excited about the direction of the show and just getting to know people and their stories. If you are listening to this and you found value in it, which I know you did, I ask one thing, go ahead and share it because that's how this word spreads and everybody's impact. So thank you so much for tuning in the show and we'll see you next week.